The small town of Pinewood wasn't big enough to hide from your troubles. For Lily Chen, those troubles had a name: Vanessa Parker. Every morning, Lily's stomach would twist into knots as she approached the weathered brick building of Pinewood High. The hallways that should have felt like pathways to her future instead felt like minefields. One wrong step, one wrong glance, and Vanessa would notice her. "Well, look who decided to wear her mom's hand-me-downs again," Vanessa had sneered last Tuesday, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at Lily's slightly faded blue sweater. The laughter that followed from Vanessa's friends cut deeper than the words themselves. What hurt most was seeing Josh Taylor join in. The same Josh who used to trade lunch snacks with her in elementary school before social circles became impenetrable walls. Today, Lily kept her head down as she hurried to her locker, praying for invisibility. She'd almost made it when she heard that familiar voice. "Hey, everyone. Charity case alert." Lily's fingers fumbled with her combination lock as heat rushed to her cheeks. She didn't need to turn around to know Vanessa was there, her expensive perfume announcing her presence before her words could. "I heard her mom works 3 jobs now," Vanessa stage whispered to her friends. "Guess that's what happens when nobody wants to marry you." The hallway erupted in laughter. Lily's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Not here. Not now. She'd learned that tears only make things worse. They were blood in the water for sharks like Vanessa. When lunch period came, Lily found her usual spot in the far corner of the library. The librarian and Mrs. Wu pretended not to notice the sandwich Lily quietly unwrapped, breaking the no-food rule out of kindness. Sometimes this kindness felt worse than the bullying, this acknowledgement that she was someone to be pitied. "Your mother called again," Mrs. Wu said softly, sliding a note across the desk. "She'll be working late tonight. Wanted to make sure you knew." Lily nodded, tucking the note into her backpack. Her mom tried so hard, working endless shifts at the hospital as a nurse's aide, picking up weekend work cleaning houses in the wealthy part of town where Vanessa lived. The irony wasn't lost on Lily that her mother probably cleaned Vanessa's home, scrubbing toilets for the family that had raised a daughter who made her own child's life miserable. That afternoon in biology class, their teacher assigned lab partners for the semester project. Lily's heart sank when her name was called alongside Josh's. His popular boy smile faltered momentarily as he glanced at Vanessa, who shot him a warning look. "Can I switch partners?" he asked loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Partners are final," the teacher replied, oblivious to the social dynamics at play. When Josh reluctantly took the seat beside her, he left as much space between them as the small lab table would allow. "Just don't mess this up," he muttered. "I need an A in this class." Lily bit her lip and nodded. She was actually at the top of their biology class, but nobody seemed to remember that. They only saw what Vanessa wanted them to see: a quiet, awkward girl with unfashionable clothes and a single mom. That evening, Lily walked the long way home to avoid passing the cafe where Vanessa and her friends hung out after school. Her backpack felt heavier than usual, weighed down not just with textbooks, but with the day's accumulated humiliations. Her tiny apartment was empty when she arrived. She made herself a bowl of instant noodles and sat at the kitchen table to do her homework. On the refrigerator, held by a magnet shaped like a star, was her acceptance letter to the state science competition. She'd told no one at school about it. Achievements only gave Vanessa more ammunition. As Lily finished her biology assignment, she imagined a different life, one where she was miles away from Pinewood, surrounded by people who valued brains over beauty, kindness over cruelty. Just 2 more years, she told herself. 2 more years and she could leave for college, reinvent herself completely. What she couldn't know then, as she sat alone in her quiet apartment, was how completely her life would change, or that years later, she would find herself face to face with Vanessa again, under circumstances neither of them could possibly imagine. The day after high school graduation, Lily packed 1 suitcase and a backpack. That was all she could take on the bus to Capital City, where Westridge College had offered her a partial scholarship. As the bus pulled away from Pinewood, she pressed her forehead against the window, watching her hometown shrink until it disappeared completely. "First time leaving home?" asked an older woman sitting next to her. Lily nodded, surprised to feel a knot in her throat. Despite everything, there was something scary about leaving the only place she'd ever known. "It'll be okay, honey," the woman said kindly. "Sometimes the best thing we can do is start fresh." Starting fresh meant a tiny dorm room shared with a theater major named May, who talked a lot but never pried when Lily stayed quiet about her past. It meant working weekends at a coffee shop near campus, where she learned to make lattes with perfect foam hearts. It meant taking evening shifts at the campus library, shelving books until midnight, and using those quiet hours to study when no one was looking. The scholarship covered tuition but not much else. Lily's mom sent what she could, $20 tucked into birthday cards, $50 at Christmas, but Lily never asked for more. She knew what it cost her mother to send even that much. "You should come out with us tonight," May would say almost every Friday. "The business students are throwing a party at Trevor's apartment." Most times, Lily would shake her head and claim she had to work. But halfway through sophomore year, exhausted from saying no, she finally said yes. The party was loud, crowded with students holding red plastic cups. Lily stood awkwardly in a corner until a tall guy with kind eyes noticed her. "You look about as comfortable as I feel at these things," he said with a gentle smile. "I'm David. Business marketing." "Lily, business management," she replied, surprised by how easy it was to talk to him. They ended up sitting on the fire escape for hours, talking about classes and dreams while the party thumped on without them. David was the first friend Lily made outside of her roommate and coworkers. Through David, she met other business students. She joined study groups, then clubs. By junior year, she had surprised herself by becoming the treasurer of the Business Students Association, where her careful handling of the budget earned her respect. "You should apply for the Hanson internship," her favorite professor suggested during office hours. "They only take 2 students each year, but you've got the grades and the work ethic." The day Lily got the internship call, she sat on her bed for an hour, staring at her phone in disbelief. The position came with a stipend that meant she could quit one of her part-time jobs. It also came with a clothing allowance for appropriate business attire, the first new clothes Lily had owned in years. Standing in the department store, trying on a navy blue blazer that fit her perfectly, Lily barely recognized herself in the mirror. Gone was the hunched posture, the habit of trying to disappear. The person looking back at her stood straight, met her own gaze directly. The internship turned into a job offer after graduation. Entry level, but at Dixon and Powell Marketing, where starting at the bottom still meant a salary that allowed Lily to rent a small studio apartment of her own. For the first time, she bought furniture that wasn't secondhand, hung art on walls she could paint any color she wanted. "I'm thinking of changing my hair," she told her mom during their weekly phone call. "You've had the same style since you were 12, her mom laughed. The next day, Lily walked into an upscale salon with a magazine clipping. She walked out with shoulder-length hair that framed her face in soft layers, highlighted with supple caramel streaks that caught the light when she moved. Over the next few years, as Lily moved up from assistant account manager to senior account manager, a transformation continued. She learned what clothes suited her body, what colors brought out her eyes. She took a public speaking course to overcome her fear of presentations. She started saying yes to after-work drinks, to weekend hiking trips with colleagues, to blind dates set up by well-meaning friends. None of those dates turned serious, though. Whenever a relationship started to deepen, Lily would find a reason to pull back. Something in her still couldn't quite believe that people might like her for herself, might stay even when they saw her flaws. What Lily didn't realize as she built her carefully curated new life was that running from your past doesn't mean you've escaped it. Sometimes the things we try hardest to leave behind are just waiting for the right moment to reappear. Lily stared at her reflection in the hotel bathroom mirror, smoothing down her silk blouse one last time. The Marketing Excellence Conference was a big deal. Her boss had sent her instead of coming himself, a vote of confidence that still made her nervous. She'd given her presentation that morning, and it had gone well enough that several people had asked for her business card afterward. Now she just had to get through the networking reception, and she could retreat to her room with room service and that novel she'd been trying to finish for weeks. She took a deep breath and headed downstairs. The hotel bar was crowded with marketing professionals in business attire, everyone balancing small plates of appetizers while trying to exchange business cards. Lily grabbed a glass of wine from a passing server and found a quiet corner where she could observe before diving in. She was about to approach a group discussing digital analytics when someone bumped into her from behind, nearly causing her to spill her drink. "I'm so sorry," a male voice began, then stopped abruptly. Lily turned around, ready with a polite smile, but it froze on her face. Standing before her was a ghost from her past, Josh Taylor, the boy who had once joined in on Vanessa's cruel jokes, who had been her reluctant lab partner for that miserable semester in high school. He looked different now, broader shoulders, shorter hair, a well-tailored suit instead of the Letterman jacket he'd worn like armor. But his eyes were the same bright blue she remembered, now widened in shock. Lily Chen?" he asked, his voice carrying a note of disbelief. She considered pretending she didn't recognize him or simply walking away. Instead, she straightened her spine and met his gaze directly. "Josh Taylor," she said, her voice steady. "It's been a while." "Wow, I almost didn't recognize you," he stammered, his eyes taking in her sleek haircut, her designer outfit, her confident posture. 12 years will do that," she replied, taking a sip of her wine to hide her discomfort. An awkward silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken history. "Are you here for the conference?" he finally asked, gesturing vaguely at the room. Lily nodded. "I presented the case study on multi-channel campaign integration this morning." "That was you." "That was brilliant," he said, genuine admiration in his voice. "I'm here representing Matthew's Architecture. We're looking to revamp our marketing strategy." Before Lily could respond, a server approached with a tray of appetizers. They'd both reached for the same small plate, their fingers nearly touching. She pulled back quickly, as if burned. "Please, go ahead," Josh said, his expression unreadable. As they stood there, making stilted small talk about the conference sessions, Lily felt something shift inside her. The nervous teenager she had once been wanted to run and hide. But the woman she had become was curious about who Josh had turned into, about what he remembered of those days, about whether people like him ever realized the damage they caused. "Would you like to sit down?" Josh asked suddenly, pointing to a small table that had just been vacated. "I'd love to hear more about your work." Lily hesitated, then nodded. As they settled at the table, Josh cleared his throat. "Look, Lily, I need to say something, and it's long overdue. I was awful to you in high school. I went along with Vanessa and her friends because I was too scared to stand up to them, and that's no excuse. I've thought about it a lot over the years, and I'm truly sorry." The directness of his apology caught her off guard. She had imagined this moment many times, confronting one of her tormentors, but in her imagination, she was always cutting and clever, making them feel as small as they had once made her feel. Instead, she found herself speechless. "You don't have to say anything," Josh continued when she remained silent. "I just wanted you to know that I regret it. Seeing you now, so successful and, well, you look great. I'm glad things worked out for you." Lily studied his face, looking for signs of insincerity. Finding none, she took another sip of her wine before responding. "Thank you for saying that," she said simply. "High school was a long time ago." "It was," he agreed. "But some mistakes stick with you." Their conversation gradually eased into more comfortable territory: work, the city, favorite restaurants. By the time they ordered a second round of drinks, Lily was surprised to find herself laughing at Josh's story about a disastrous client meeting. "Are you staying at this hotel?" he asked as the networking event began to wind down. "Yes, just for the conference," she replied. "Would you maybe want to grab dinner tomorrow night? There's a really good Thai place just down the street." The invitation hung in the air between them. Lily thought about declining, about keeping the walls she had carefully built intact. But something in his open expression, in the way he had acknowledged his past without making excuses, made her curious about what might happen next. "I'd like that," she said finally, surprising herself almost as much as him. Neither of them could have known then how that simple dinner would change both their lives forever. That dinner at the Thai restaurant turned into breakfast the next morning, which turned into exchanged phone numbers and promises to stay in touch. Back home in Capital City, Lily tried to convince herself it had been nothing more than closure, a chance to finally put her painful past behind her. But then Josh called, and texted, and video chatted. "I have to go to Boston next month for a project," he told her during one of their late-night calls. "It's only a 2-hour drive from you. Maybe I could visit for the weekend after. Lily agreed before she could overthink it. When Josh arrived at her apartment with flowers and a nervous smile, something inside her chest loosened, a knot she hadn't realized was there. "Your place is amazing," he said, looking around at her carefully decorated apartment. "It's so, you. How would you know what's me?" she teased, but the question had a serious edge. Josh looked at her thoughtfully. "I guess I'm still figuring that out," he admitted, "but I'd like to if you'll let me." That weekend, they walked through the city park, ate at Lily's favorite hole-in-the-wall noodle shop, and talked about everything and nothing. Josh told her about his dream of designing sustainable housing. Lily shared stories about her most difficult clients. They carefully avoided mentioning high school until their last night together, when Josh brought up Vanessa. "We dated for a while after graduation," he said quietly as they sat on Lily's small balcony, sharing a bottle of wine. "It was not good. She hasn't changed much, from what I hear." Lily just nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The mention of Vanessa's name still had the power to make her throat tighten. "I broke it off before college," Josh continued. "Best decision I ever made." Their goodbyes the next morning felt heavier than they should have after just one weekend. 2 weeks later, Lily found herself boarding a train to visit Josh in Riverdale, a mid-sized city about an hour from their hometown of Pinewood. "I can't wait for you to see my place," Josh told her at the station, taking her overnight bag. "It's nothing fancy, but I designed the renovations myself." His apartment was in an old converted warehouse with exposed brick walls and large windows. But what caught Lily's attention was a child-sized purple backpack hanging by the door. "Oh," Josh said, following her gaze. "I meant to tell you, I have a daughter. She's with her mom this weekend, but I'd really like you to meet her sometime. Her name is Penny. She's 8. Lily felt like she'd missed a step going downstairs. "You have a daughter?" she repeated. Josh nodded, suddenly looking nervous. "I was married for a few years. It didn't work out, but we share custody of Penny. She stays with me every other week." "Why didn't you mention her before?" Lily asked, trying to keep the accusation out of her voice. Josh ran a hand through his hair. "I guess I was afraid it might scare you off. Single dad and all that. And I wanted to be sure about us before bringing her into the picture." "Are you sure about us?" The question slipped out before Lily could stop it. Josh crossed the room and took her hands in his. "More sure than I've been about anything in a long time." That night, lying beside Josh in his bed, Lily tried to picture what his daughter might be like. She had never thought much about children, had never pictured herself as a mother or even a stepmother. The idea was both terrifying and strangely intriguing. Over the next 6 months, their relationship deepened through weekend visits and daily calls. Josh met Lily's mother, who gave him a thorough interrogation before reluctantly approving. Lily met Josh's parents, who welcomed her warmly, though his mother couldn't help mentioning how much they had hoped things would work out with Penny's mom. "I think it's time for you to meet Penny," Josh said one evening over the phone. "She's been asking about you." Lily's stomach fluttered with nerves. "What have you told her about me?" "Just that you're someone special to me, and I think you two would really like each other." The following Friday, Lily took a day off work and traveled to Riverdale. Josh met her at the station alone. "Penny's at school until 3, he explained. "I thought we could have lunch first, give you a chance to prepare." "Prepare for what?" "She's 8, not a firing squad," Lily joked, but her hands were shaking slightly. They were sitting in Josh's living room when they heard a key in the lock. Lily stood up, smoothing down her jeans nervously. The door swung open, and a small girl with dark blonde pigtails bounded in, followed by a woman who was looking down at her phone. "Josh, I need to switch next Tuesday. I have a work thing." The woman looked up, and the world seemed to stop spinning. Lily found herself staring into a face she had hoped never to see again. Older now, with fine lines around the eyes, but unmistakable. Vanessa Parker, Penny's mother, Josh's ex-wife. And suddenly, everything made terrible, perfect sense. The world seemed to shrink to just the 4 of them in that doorway. Josh looking confused, little Penny glancing between the adults with wide eyes, Vanessa frozen mid-sentence, and Lily feeling like she might be sick right there on Josh's polished hardwood floor. "Lily?" Vanessa's voice had the same pitch Lily remembered, just a bit deeper with age. "Lily Chen." Lily couldn't speak. Her heartbeat was so loud in her ears that she wondered if everyone else could hear it too. "You two know each other?" Josh asked, looking between them. "We went to high school together," Vanessa said quickly, her eyes never leaving Lily's face. "What a surprise." Penny tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mom, you said we had to hurry." That small voice broke the spell. Lily took a deep breath and forced herself to look directly at Vanessa. The woman before her was still beautiful, still perfectly put together in her expensive clothes, but something was different. There was a tightness around her eyes, a defensive set to her shoulders that hadn't been there when she was the queen of Pinewood High. "Hi, Vanessa," Lily finally managed. "It's been a long time." Josh stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Lily's back. "Penny, this is my friend Lily that I told you about," he said, his voice warm but his expression confused. "Lily, this is my daughter Penny." The little girl gave a shy wave. "Hi," she said. "Do you like unicorns?" Despite everything, Lily couldn't help but smile. "I do actually, very much." "Oh, well, she's all yours for the week," Vanessa said briskly, handing Josh a pink backpack. "All her homework is in the front pocket. She needs to practice her spelling words every night." She turned to leave, then paused, giving Lily one last look. "Good to see you again," she said, her tone making it clear it was anything but. After Vanessa left, Josh sent Penny to unpack her things while he pulled Lily into the kitchen. "What was that about?" he asked in a low voice. "You look like you'd seen a ghost." Lily leaned against the counter, her legs still shaky. "Remember how I told you I was bullied in high school?" she said. "Vanessa was the ringleader. She made my life hell for 4 years." Josh's face drained of color. "Vanessa? My Vanessa?" He shook his head. "I mean, not my Vanessa anymore, but—" "God, Lily, I had no idea." "How could you?" Lily said. "I never told you her name." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of this new knowledge hanging between them. From the other room, they could hear Penny humming to herself as she arranged her things. "This changes things, doesn't it?" Josh finally asked, his voice soft and sad. Lily thought about walking away. It would be the sensible thing to do. Dating her former bully's ex-husband. Becoming a stepmother to her child. It sounded like the plot of a bad movie. Before she could answer, Penny appeared in the doorway, holding a stuffed unicorn with a rainbow mane. "Dad said we could make pizza for dinner," she announced. "Do you know how to make pizza, Lily?" Looking at the little girl, who had Vanessa's hair but Josh's kind eyes, Lily felt something unexpected. This child was innocent of her parents' history. She deserved better than to be caught in the middle of old grudges. "I do know how to make pizza," Lily said. "I make a pretty good one, actually." "Can you teach me?" Penny asked, bouncing a little on her toes. Lily glanced at Josh, who was watching her with a mix of hope and uncertainty. "Sure," she said. "I'd love to." That evening, they made pizza with too much cheese and watched a movie about talking animals. Penny fell asleep on the couch, her head resting against Lily's arm. As Josh carried his daughter to bed, Lily sat alone in the living room, trying to make sense of the day's revelations. When Josh returned, he sat beside her, leaving a careful space between them. "I'll understand if this is too weird," he said. "If you want to go back to the city tomorrow, no hard feelings." Lily looked at him. This man who had been a boy who had stood by while she was tormented, who had grown into someone kind and thoughtful, who clearly adored his daughter. "I don't know what I want yet," she admitted, "but I don't think I want to run away." Later that night, as Lily lay awake in Josh's guest room, they'd agreed it was better with Penny there. Her phone lit up with a text. It was from an unknown number. "This is Vanessa. We need to talk. Coffee tomorrow at 10? The place on Main Street." Lily stared at the message for a long time before finally typing back one word, "Okay." She didn't sleep much that night, wondering what Vanessa could possibly want to say to her after all these years, and what she might finally have the courage to say in return. The coffee shop on Main Street was busy with the weekend morning rush. Lily arrived 10 minutes early, choosing a table in the corner where she could see the door. Her stomach was in knots, and she wrapped her cold fingers around her mug, trying to draw some warmth and courage from it. When Vanessa walked in, heads turned. She still had that effect on rooms. Her blonde hair was cut in an expensive-looking bob, and her designer sunglasses perched on top of her head. But as she got closer to the table, Lily noticed things she hadn't seen yesterday: the tired lines around her eyes, the slightly forced quality of her smile. "You came," Vanessa said, sliding into the seat across from Lily. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," Lily admitted. A young waitress approached their table. "Can I get you anything?" she asked Vanessa. "Just black coffee, thanks," Vanessa replied, then added, "please," as if remembering her manners as an afterthought. They sat in uncomfortable silence until the coffee arrived. Vanessa took a small sip before meeting Lily's eyes. "So, you and Josh," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "Me and Josh," Lily echoed, not offering more. Vanessa sighed. "Look, I'm not here to cause problems. Believe it or not, Josh and I actually managed to co-parent pretty well these days. It took a lot of work to get here, and I don't want anything to mess that up for Penny's sake." "Is that why you texted me? To warn me off?" Lily asked, feeling a flash of the old anger. "No," Vanessa said, looking genuinely surprised. "I texted you because—" She paused, seeming to struggle with what she wanted to say. "Because we have history, and it's not good history, and I thought we should talk about it before it gets weird for Penny." Lily hadn't expected this level of directness. "That's actually reasonable," she admitted. "I can be reasonable now," Vanessa said with a small, self-deprecating smile. "Therapy and divorce will do that to you." There was another silence, less tense this time. "I was horrible to you in high school," Vanessa finally said, looking down at her coffee. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I wouldn't, in your shoes." Lily hadn't expected an apology either. She'd imagined this conversation 100 times over the years, but never like this. "Why?" she asked, the question that had haunted her for years. "Why me specifically?" Vanessa looked uncomfortable. "Because you were smart, and nice, and confident in this quiet way, like you knew who you were. My parents were falling apart, my dad was cheating on my mom, and I was angry all the time. You were an easy target because you never fought back." "I didn't know how," Lily said softly. "I know. And I used that." Vanessa looked up, meeting Lily's gaze directly. "I'm not that person anymore. Or I try not to be. Having Penny changed me. I don't want her to ever be like I was, or to be treated like I treated you." The raw honesty in Vanessa's voice was disarming. For the first time, Lily could see the human being behind the monster of her memories, flawed, struggling, trying to be better. "Penny seems like a great kid," Lily offered. Vanessa's face softened at the mention of her daughter. "She is. She's the best thing in my life." She hesitated. "She's also sensitive. Like you were. Sometimes I worry." "That she'll be bullied?" Lily finished for her. Vanessa nodded, looking ashamed. "Karma, right?" They talked for over an hour, about Penny, about Josh, though Vanessa tactfully avoided details of their marriage, about their careers. Vanessa had become a real estate agent, specializing in luxury properties. She was good at it, but admitted it wasn't her passion. "What is your passion?" Lily asked, surprised to find herself genuinely curious. Vanessa looked embarrassed. "I volunteer teaching art at Penny's school. It's not much, but it makes me happy." As they prepared to leave, Vanessa hesitated. "Can I ask you something? Are you with Josh because of me? As some kind of revenge?" The question hung in the air between them. 6 months ago, Lily might not have known the answer herself, but now she did. "No," she said firmly. "I'm with him because he's kind and funny and makes me feel safe. Finding out he was your ex was a shock, but it's not why I'm with him." Vanessa nodded, looking relieved. "Good. He deserves someone who loves him for himself." She gathered her purse. "And for what it's worth, I think Penny's lucky if she gets you in her life." As Lily watched Vanessa walk away, she felt something shift inside her, not forgiveness exactly, but a loosening of the tight knot of resentment she carried for so long. The past wasn't erased, but maybe it didn't have to define her future. That evening, when Josh asked nervously how the meeting had gone, Lily surprised herself by saying, "Better than I expected. We both grew up, I guess." What she didn't tell him was the choice she now faced, whether to embrace this complicated new reality with all its painful history and unexpected connections, or to protect herself by walking away. 6 months later, Lily stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting the simple pearl earrings her mother had given her that morning. Her cream-colored dress was elegant but understated, just like the small wedding she and Josh had planned. "You look beautiful," her mother said from the doorway, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Are you nervous?" Lily considered the question. "Not about marrying Josh," she said honestly, "just about everything that comes after." What came after included becoming a stepmother to Penny and sharing a permanent connection with Vanessa. It wasn't the future Lily had ever imagined for herself, but somehow it felt right. The door opened and Penny burst in, already wearing her junior bridesmaid dress. "Dad sent me to check if you're ready. He says he's dying of nervousness and old age out there." Lily laughed. "Tell him I'll be right out." As Penny turned to leave, she paused. "You really do look like a princess," she said shyly. "Thank you, sweetie." The endearment came naturally now. Over the past months, Lily had grown to love this bright, sensitive child who shared traits with both her parents but was entirely her own person. The ceremony was held in the garden of a small historic home, with just 40 guests in attendance. Josh's eyes widened when he saw Lily walking toward him, and his smile was so full of love that it calmed her last-minute jitters. As they exchanged vows, Lily caught sight of Vanessa sitting in the third row. She had brought her new boyfriend, a quiet architect who seemed to genuinely adore her. Their relationship had evolved into something neither woman could have predicted, not friendship exactly, but a mutual respect built on their shared concern for Penny. At the reception, after the cake was cut and the first dances were done, Lily found herself alone for a moment on the small patio. Vanessa approached, holding 2 glasses of champagne. She offered one to Lily. "Congratulations," she said. "It was a beautiful ceremony." "Thank you," Lily replied, taking the glass. "And thanks for all your help with Penny's dress shopping. She loves that you were involved." Vanessa nodded. "I never thought we'd be here," she admitted. "When I saw you in Josh's apartment that day, I thought it was some kind of cosmic joke." "Me too," Lily said with a small laugh. "Life's strange sometimes." "Do you ever think about how different things might have been?" Vanessa asked. "If I hadn't been such a monster in high school? If we'd actually been friends?" Lily considered this. "Sometimes. But then we wouldn't be here now, exactly like this. And despite everything, unhappy with where I am." Vanessa raised her glass slightly. "To second chances, then." "To second chances," Lily echoed, clinking her glass against Vanessa's. Later that night, after they'd said goodbye to their guests and changed into comfortable clothes, Josh found Lily sitting on their hotel room balcony, looking at the stars. "Any regrets?" he asked, sitting beside her and taking her hand. "About marrying you?" "Not one." She squeezed his fingers. "About everything else? I'm still working through some things. But I'm getting there." "You're amazing, you know that," Josh said. "The way you've handled everything with Vanessa, with Penny, most people wouldn't have stayed." "Most people haven't been where I've been," Lily said, "or come out the other side." The next weekend was Penny's science fair. Lily sat in the audience between Josh and Vanessa, all 3 of them beaming with pride as Penny explained her project on plant growth. Afterward, as they were helping Penny pack up her display, one of the teachers approached them. "It's so nice to see co-parenting done right," she said approvingly. "Not many families make it work like this." After she walked away, the 3 adults exchanged amused glances. "If she only knew," Vanessa murmured. "Should we tell her we wrote the book on how not to start a blended family?" Josh joked. Penny looked between them curiously. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing, sweetie," Lily said. "Just grown-up stuff." That night, as Lily tucked Penny into bed in their home, the little girl asked, "Can I tell you a secret?" "Of course," Lily said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I wished for you," Penny whispered. "Last year on my birthday. I wished Dad would find someone nice who would love both of us. And then he found you." Lily's throat tightened with emotion. "That's a pretty powerful wish," she managed to say. "I know," Penny replied seriously. "That's why I'm saving this year's wish for something really special." After Penny fell asleep, Lily stood in the doorway watching her, thinking about wishes and second chances and the strange paths that led people to each other. She had once dreamed of revenge against those who had hurt her, but life had given her something far better: healing, family, and the discovery that the best revenge wasn't making others suffer, but finding joy despite the suffering they had caused. It wasn't a perfect ending. Real life rarely provided those, but it was a good one, and that was enough.